Hi, welcome to You Gotta Be, a podcast that focuses on the lives and work of women identified DJs. Today's guest is Page Hodel. Paige is going to tell you a little bit about her DJ career, and I'm going to say that I benefited from her DJ career many times in the nightclubs in San Francisco. Paige, feel free to share about your DJ career.
Well, have you go get a pot of coffee and sit down because it's a long one. Actually, I'm not 100% sure I know the very first date that I started DJing, but it is over 40 years. So 40, we'll call it a 40-year anniversary right now. And that career has spanned, starting playing records in the liquor cabinet of Scott's Bar. I think we put a couple of turntables in the liquor cabinet, and I peeked around the closet door. Hold on one sec. A call is coming in. Is that okay?
We could stop. You can take it and we'll start over.
No, I don't want to take it, but does that interrupt the recording? I really apologize.
No problem at all. We can keep going.
So if that happens, I just ignore it.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, let me know when to start.
Oh, you can start now.
Okay. So started at Scott's, with two little Radio Shack turntables somewhere around 1980, and continued on until COVID really kind of put the kibosh on everything for the last couple of years. And I am just now, although I have DJ'd over the last couple of years, mostly in people's gardens, DJing outdoors, weddings and parties and that sort of thing. But gonna get back into the clubs starting this spring in Oakland / Berkeley / San Francisco, the White Horse Inn. We're about to start doing Saturday nights down there. I am going to start doing Saturday nights down there, and I am thrilled and really happy to get back behind the turntables, although they're not turntables anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to always call them turntables.
Well, and the White Horse Inn is quite a historic venue, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, I remember when I came out actually in the Bay Area in the mid 70s, I remember hearing about the White Horse Inn. So it's got and you can feel it when you walk in these venues that have that much history in the walls. You can feel it when you walk in the door. Absolutely.
Yes.
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, two friends of mine, Patty Dingle, amazing, wonderful woman, and her partner's wife, Robin Rico, another absolutely amazing woman, have taken over the place, and Patty purchased it, and they're going to just completely kind of revamp, but also, maintaining the history and the integrity of the history of the place.
And just for the audience's sake, you promoted and ran how many different club nights?
Over the years, I think I did about 4 or 5 that were somewhat successful. I did probably 8 total, 4 of which kind of flopped after the first night. And, it's sort of like, a chef, when you're throwing spaghetti, some of them stick and some of them fall to the ground. So, we just kept trying new stuff, and it was fun. All of it was a lot of fun. But I did the Box Dance Club for 11 years, and I did Club Q for 16 years in San Francisco. And those were my 2 major. And then I did a club called Respect, which I think ran for 8 years. And that was a really fun afternoon tea dance sort of club. So, just have had a great, great career.
Yeah. I mean, to have club nights that run, 11 and 16 years is pretty phenomenal, because most club nights don't last that long. So
no, in fact, yeah, I took quite a bit of pride in the fact that we lasted as long. And honestly, I think probably I stayed a little bit too long at the fair, and both of those, they were sort of starting to wane earlier, and I kind of hung in there hoping that I could revive them. And I think as a woman, I don't have children, so my clubs were my kids. So you don't give up on your children.
Right.
So I kept, kind of trying to reinvent both of them. And it was time to let them go. And you kind of know, your friends are lovingly not saying anything, but you can kind of tell.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And we'll probably touch on some more on the club stuff later on. What was the first song you remember loving as a child?
Wow, that's a really good one. I mean, I know the first 45 that I had, that was my first record, and my first 45 was called Jungle Fever. And I think the band was Chakachas or something like that. And it was this super naughty, provocative kind of, but very rhythmic, very funky. I'm a guitar player, so the song is, really driven by a rhythm guitar, which is my love. So I think that was, my introduction into the music world.
Interesting.
Probably, yeah.
Kind of like
maybe the early Beatles.
Reading Peyton Place is your first reader, right? Just jump right in.
Yes, yeah, no kidding. It was not. Although I do have a copy of the Tubby the Tuba album that I believe was mine as a child. That's a very old record.
Yes. Yes. What are your favorite genres to DJ or dance to? And are they different? Like, do you like to DJ one genre but dance another?
I love soul music. Funk and soul is my life, and it has always been. Even as a young music, even though I grew up, a white woman in California in the 60s, and I was, the Crosby, Stills and Nash and the Joni Mitchell and the Van Morrison and that. But my love was R&B and funk and soul. And when I started expressing myself as a musician, it was funk, definitely funk. At that point, it was called funk or R&B. And so that's my love. That sort of runs through everything that I do. I made the decision as a DJ early on that I was never going to say no. If somebody asked me to DJ and they were going to pay me money to DJ, I would never say no. So it took me on some journeys that were not expected. I did a number. I worked in a very sort of mainstream rock club called the Oasis in San Francisco, and was there for many years. I think I was there 8 years, and that was top 40, mostly rock. Although everything that I play is sort of soulful, and then of course I infused all of the soul music that I loved. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, I always just, I love to DJ anything really, and I took it as a challenge. As a DJ, if it was music I didn't know, I learned it,
yes.
and I perfected it.
Yes, that's one of the reasons. Like I told you earlier when we were checking in about this, that I was working on a Vina house, Vietnamese house genre, and I like you, if I haven't heard it before and I like it and I can dance to it, well, then I want to try, because I was first a dancer, going to the clubs, going to the box, going to Club Q, going to Trocadero, I-Beam, all, and so when I DJ from the perspective of, can I dance to this? Because if I can dance to it, probably other people can dance to it. And so I like to explore all kinds of different genres as a result, because I just love music.
Totally. And I think the further we get from labels and, the music industry is drowning in labels, and they love to categorize music, and it's so unfortunate, because a lot of music, well, in the old days when there was a music industry like that, you had to fit into kind of their categories. I think now the music industry is so democratic, and everybody can do everything any way they want all the time, kind of. So that's pretty cool. And it has, but a perfect example, there was a young musician named Eva Cassidy, who was a unbelievable, beautiful soul singer. but she had sort of a country sound and blues and
Mm-hmm.
soul. And she was a white woman, and the record companies did not know how to classify her. They heard her music, they wanted to call her country, but she wasn't country because it was very soulful. And they ended up not signing her, and then she died,
Mm.
sadly. And actually posthumously, I don't know if that's the way you say it, but she became very famous because an English radio DJ heard her and went, whoa. But the music industry has their little labels and their corners and their little
Mm-hmm. That's true.
boxes they want to put in. Yeah.
Yeah, and
But I say,
nowadays it like you said, it is wide open. Someone like Eva Cassidy could, post on Instagram or TikTok and, find her lane. And then, the music industry perks up and pays attention.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's really exciting the way the music industry is going. It's a little weird and hard as a DJ to find music. In the old days, it was you'd go to the record store
Mm-hmm.
and you'd go down to the record store on Thursday, and usually all the record stores knew that I was coming, and they would hold records for me all week when they came in, saying, oh, I think Paige is going to like this one, she'll like this one. And I'd get there and there'd be the Paige pile, and my friends Sam and Tom would play all the records that they knew. And it was not just me. I mean, all the DJs, they would do that for all the DJs that were working, DJs that they knew our sounds and things that we liked and stuff. So, but now, there's 20 trillion
Yes.
avenues of exposure to music, and there's like a billion musicians. So it's harder, and but it's also more exciting because it's, you're less confined.
Yes. I often, just to explore, will go on Beatport, and you can stream from your DJ software, and I'll just pick a genre, start at the bottom and just work my way up the BPMs and just play it to see, I don't know what this genre is. Let me explore it. And then I end up liking it, and I'll do a whole set on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had a guy call me once, and it's one of my favorite stories as a DJ because it really it helped me define the art of DJing very, very clearly, because everybody said, well, you're not making the music. If I'm playing all these other people's songs, of course we all know that the art of that is watching your crowd and making sure you give them what they want when they want it, and giving them things they didn't even know they want,
exactly.
But this one guy asked me to DJ a party for him, and he said, I want you to do what did he call it? World something, and trip hop.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't even know what trip hop was, and I was like, I really wanted, it was a lot of money. It was during the .com explosion, the first bubble. And, people were renting venues and saying, oh, I'll give you, $10,000 and I want to have a party for my hamster. They were like, it was like, because the money was just ridiculous. And so I really wanted to do this party, but I was like, I don't know if I'm your girl, because I don't really even know what trip hop is. And he said, well, go buy some. And so he gave me $1,000 and said, go buy a bunch of trip hop records and listen to them and come back and let me know if you want to do the show. And I was like, wow. Okay. And so I went to the record store and I bought, stacks of trip hop, listened to all of it. And then I picked out ones that moved me.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a CD of those, or cassette, or whatever it was at the time, of the things that moved me that I heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent the thing to him and I said, is this kind of what you're looking for? And he was like, 100%. And what I learned was, he said, you don't need to know this music, but your filter. And the music will come through you, and the things that you pick are going to be thick because I like your sound.
Right.
And it helps me kind of understand that, kind of where the art of being a creative DJ resides, and each of us has a voice. It's as though we're singing, but we're saying something. We're messengers, just like all artists.
Yes. Yes.
You
Yeah,
know?
I agree with that. I feel a lot of times I describe it as I feel like we're collage artists because we're
Yes,
taking these materials made by other people, but putting them together to create something new.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Nice visual, really nice visual.
Thank you. Um, so you already talked about that your favorite genres really to listen to when you aren't DJing is soul and blues and funk. Is there anything else that you listen to when you're not in the DJ mode?
Well, to be really honest, when I am not in DJ mode, I don't listen to soul and
Oh, okay.
anymore. What I listen to is jazz. Like I'm now at a point where I've had 40 years of blaring and blasting music in my, so when I'm in my private space at home, you probably are never going to hear any dance beats in my house unless I'm getting ready for work.
Right.
But I listen to, beautiful jazz, vocal jazz. I love African music. I love some kind of ethereal new electronic stuff, but chill out type stuff.
Yeah.
Very, very, it usually does not have drums or very, very laid back stuff. So I don't listen to that much R&B and soul in my home anymore. However, it's what I love. It's the music. If we're going to dance, it's going to be soulful.
I listen to a lot of jazz too. And in fact, I'm drawn to music, especially house music that has those jazz piano breaks or those, I'm always drawn to those. And I've mixed jazz into some house sets.
Oh wow, neat.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Thank you. Coming from you. Thank you. What made you decide to become a DJ? Because you were a musician first, right?
Yeah.
So what made you transition to DJing?
It was a couple of things. I was, very, very well aware, very young, that I was going to be a musician. It was almost as though I got a psychic feeling that, no, you are not going this direction. This is where you're going. It was a very loud voice. I couldn't not do it, is essentially what I say, and of course, my parents weren't enthusiastic. They wanted me to go to college, and I was like, I'm not really going to go to college. I'm going to go, I'm going to be a musician. And so I had to kind of, I found a soft spot and a compromise, and I went to music school. I went to a conservatory of music in Paris for a year when I finished high school, and had the most incredible year of my life, and fell in love. What I really was studying was falling in love and being a lesbian.
Yeah.
With the guise of 8 hours a day playing the classical guitar. But truthfully, I was falling in love with the girl next door, and had a marvelous year. But I was a musician, and I knew I wanted to get back to the Bay Area and start a women's funk band, which I did. We got back to America, me and my partner Robin from New York, and we moved to Oakland, and I started a funk band there with a couple of women, and we were really good. I mean, we were tight, really good. But I recognized that you either play music that you write or you play other people's top 40 hits, and if you become a top 40 band, you're a wedding band, and you're kind of selling out, but you make money. And then if you kind of go the other route and you express yourself, if you're very lucky, you're one of the lucky ones that gets signed and heard and can make a living. But there's a trillion bands, and a billionth of them make it.
Right.
If so I was that daunted me, to be honest. It was, and music is so very, very vital for me that I was like, I don't want to be a wedding band.
Right.
I don't want to do that. What's ironic is I ended up becoming a DJ, and now I DJ weddings. You know what I mean? It's sort of funny, but I'm not, I don't know. There's something about playing the guitar and playing Celebrate by Kool and the Gang that's different than playing the vinyl record. It's just different.
Right.
And it felt, and it was, it's a different kind of an art form, and it's a, you're not going to be a good DJ if you don't have good rhythm and you're not a musician. I mean, you got to have music in your blood to be a successful DJ, because to mix, you have got to feel it and you've got to know it and ride it. And so, it was early on. I remember selling my guitar to buy turntables, around 81 or 82 maybe. And it was a big day. I had worked hard to get that guitar, and it was a big fat jazz guitar, delicious jazz guitar. And it was a big day.
Yeah, I imagine it was a little bit bittersweet. You were both excited about getting the new turntables, but sad because you were giving up your beautiful guitar.
My old friend. Yeah, definitely. Bittersweet is exactly the word.
And I'm glad now that I took those 3 years of flute.
Exactly.
But then I think too, I danced to so much music for so long, and you pick up sort of the flow and the phrasing of the music that way as well. So yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways into it, but definitely it's in my opinion, there's a passion that has to be there that makes you want to consume all the music all the time, and explore, let your curiosity take you to new things and new styles and all of that. So how did you build your business and market yourself? Especially, maybe you could talk about how did you develop your successful clubs?
So I started my sort of career in producing events I used to have a birthday party every year, and the birthday parties kind of got bigger and bigger until I started renting venues because it was too big for my house. And so I would rent, and I had a dear friend, Mary Kelly, who was in a band called the Contractions, and
I remember the Contractions.
Oh yeah, I mean they're great, and I trailed behind the Contractions, and every time they rented a hall in the Mission, some punk hall, then I would rent those halls because I was like, oh, this is cool, So I rented kind of fun punk venues in the Mission in San Francisco, and through my parties and alleys, and just it was great. So I started, and I developed what we call a following, I suppose, where people said, this is going to be a fun party if we go to this. So, and then I became a DJ, professionally, was working for other clubs, and it started becoming pretty obvious that, and I don't say this with ego, because I don't mean it in that way, but I think that there's a good amount of truth to the fact that people go to the club for the DJ. If the DJ sucks, you can sit there and have a couple of drinks, and but you're not going to have the same night if the DJ that you love is there. They got you. We're like the family doctor.
Exactly.
So anyway, people kind of follow you when you're a DJ wherever you go, at least at that stage, and I started realizing, maybe I should, the money is getting made at the front door and the bar,
right?
And I'm making a 20 millionth of it, and I'm doing the heavy lifting here. So and a friend of mine opened a bar, and she said she had the Kennel Club up on, she and her husband Brooke and Jörg Spurry, who are two of my favorite people in the world. And they called and said, hey, do you want to do a night here at the Kennel Club? And I was like, let's try it. So I opened a nightclub in 1987 called The Box. And it was on Thursday nights at the Divisadero location at that time, it was the Kennel Club. Then it became the Justice League. I think it's now called the Independent. It's been many things. And actually long before we were there, it was a jazz club,
nice.
In the early 20s and 30s. and has a really rich history of jazz and live music, which I think contributed 100% to its success. I think that the energy in a building is very important to, and I learned this from the box. But anyway, so I started the box, had no idea if people were going to come, opened it, took some Letraset letters and scratched them on a piece of paper and went to Kinko's and made a flyer. And sure enough, I think 350 people showed up to our first night at the box. And we were just thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And then the next Thursday, 1,300 people showed up.
Oh my God.
And it was like that for like 7 years. I mean, it was just mobbed, and it it was just alive. And I think that a lot of the success of the box was as we opened the door, because I was known in the Bay Area for playing all different kinds of clubs. I played straight clubs and gay clubs and black clubs and white clubs, and I played everything. So I wanted everybody to come, and I wanted everybody to feel welcome, and I wanted it to be a really beautiful, diverse place where everybody was really free. Yeah. And it worked. And so I wrote a little thing that I made everybody that came in the first night read at the front door. And it was, 2 little paragraphs, but it basically said, when you walk through these doors, I think the way that I said it was, it doesn't matter who you love or where you've been, release your soul and shed your skin. And it was just meaning, we're going to all be in here loving this music together, and we're going to love each other. And it worked.
That's like, that reminds me, I've been to the box, and it was amazing. And also Club Q. And I would always say, I tell people about it, and I say, if you saw a hot woman walking by, you better act now, because there were 1,000 women in there and you never see her again. You get lost in the crowd. But I feel very much the same way, because I came out in a club very similar to Trocadero up in Seattle called the Monastery. And it was after hours, and everybody came, and it was, one of 2 clubs that were open that late. And the vibe in a place like that is special, because, like you said, everybody's there for the dance, for the music and the dance, and the hookup when it comes. But it's not like, oh, you can't come in here because you're not gay enough or straight enough or whatever the case may be. And so when first time I went to a lesbian bar, I was afraid. I didn't know how to act. I thought I'd get beaten up, because I've been in this environment where I could like be, where there were less sort of, guardrails on who you are. And so I remember dancing at the box in Club Q, and it was great. It was definitely. And don't you think high ceilings make it important? Like when you talk about the building having high ceilings.
I've had a pretty magic I don't know that I'm not sure I would agree with that. It doesn't hurt by any means. We were not known for our lighting. Like I'm a clean and sober, and so I want to be able to see the people dancing. So we didn't do wild lights and fog machines and lasers and stuff where you kind of get stoned and get lost in this visual. That really wasn't our thing. I wanted the people to be the art, and I the lights kind of bright so you could see each other. As a DJ, I like to see people's faces when I spin, because I like to watch. You can see on somebody's face when you put a record on and then you mix a new one in, and they go, oh, you could just see this moment of like, oh my God, that's my song I love. I feed off that. I'm like, that's my fuel as a DJ. So I like to see it. And conversely, if somebody goes, ugh, you want to see that too. You want to know, oh shit, I'm not going there anymore, So, being able to see each other and being able to see the energy and the dancers up on the podiums and go-go's. Does that mean, yes, it was a high ceiling, and yes, it totally worked. But have
Yeah.
I been in low ceiling places that totally worked? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's seedy and dark and like the basement and
Yeah, entirely different vibe. I lived in Costa
yeah.
Rica for a year, and I'd go to this little tiny jazz club that was in the basement, and it was just it was great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on, I love that you got started basically promoting through your birthday parties. That's very like sort of like the loft trajectory of just like, I'm going to have a party in my loft, and or rent parties or things like that where people just
Totally. Totally. And it was funny because the woman who owned or who managed Amelia's at the time called me and she said, every time you have a birthday party, we're empty. So why don't you bring whatever you do at your birthday parties, bring it here and we'll pay you to do it here. And that was my first DJ gig, So it's a testament to doing what you love, and hopefully it doesn't mean you always are going to be successful, but it was because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And in those days, I sort of tell the joke, and it's really the truth, that I think my 10-year anniversary of the box, my mailing list was 22,000 names.
Oh my
and
God.
There was no internet. It was not internet yet. So we didn't have email and all that stuff. So I had to send out 22,000 pieces of paper in an envelope with a stamp on it that said that we're having our 10-year anniversary. And I had to take out a business loan to pay for the store for the postage.
Oh my God.
For that party, because it was so much money. It was like, 10 grand or something for stamps.
That's crazy. That's wild.
And you had to pay, companies to put the stamps on, and or you had to hire a crew of people to put a label and a stamp. And it was crazy back then. Now you just take your index finger and go, yeah, 22,000 people.
Yeah.
Totally different world.
What beginner's mistakes did you make that you wished you'd known more about at the time?
I wish I had gotten sober sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a lot of fun. But I knew I was not going to last if I kept going the way I was going, because and I was, I was just pretty wild. I think one of my last wild memories was we were all completely intoxicated at the Oasis. All this crew, at the end of the night, the doors close and then the party really starts.
Yeah.
And so all of us were like super bombed. And I don't know if you remember, but the Oasis had a swimming pool. And we were naked, jumping off the roof of the Oasis into the pool, completely intoxicated. Like, what? Why am I even alive?
I know.
To tell that story. But, we just did wild stuff. We were crazy. We had fun. A lot of fun.
I got clean and sober in 1984. And I was afraid I wouldn't be able to dance because I danced basically high for like a decade, right? And so I was really happy to discover that I could still dance. And in fact, I'd get so involved in the music that people next to me would say, look at how stoned she is. And I'd be stone cold sober. I was just really into the music. But
nice.
I'm sure I'm sure offline we have some stories.
Yes. Oh my God.
And would you say that because I know some DJs who said, they stopped drinking because they thought they were like just killing it on the decks. And in fact, they weren't. They were a mess on the decks at the time.
No, I was really serious about the music. So I don't think that it interfered with my mixing.
Okay.
I don't think so.
What do you feel that your greatest achievement out of this many that you have has been up to this point as a DJ?
Achievement is an interesting word. If achievement means recognition from others, I think we've just broke a lot of records with the stuff that I was doing. I was the very first woman, apparently, I was told that I was the first woman DJ on major market radio because I did a radio show on Live 105 and on KSOL. So I think I was the first female mixer, but was that my most successful thing? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm what am I the most proud of? If that would be how I would reflect on what achievement is and what I'm the most proud of. And I'm probably going to start to cry any second. I can feel it coming because it was very dear. But I feel like we did something very special at the box. I think we contributed and changed a lot of. I think nobody had really ever brought everybody together under one roof before, and I think everybody was like, "Wow, this is fun," And for a 11-year run, we really integrated dance floors in the Bay Area, and it was so diverse and so beautiful, and everybody. I mean, I run into people literally like today. Run into people who start to cry when they talk about the box because they remember it so dearly. And these two guys once in Cliff's Hardware, I was standing in line and these two guys were behind me, and it wasn't that long ago. And the guy tapped me on the shoulder and he goes, "Are you Paige from the box?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, he starts crying. He goes, "Me and my boyfriend met there. We just love the box." And then, of course, I started crying. We were all crying in Cliff's Hardware, But it was very sweet. And I think there's a tender place in all of us because we really did kind of change the world. And I don't mean that egocentrically at all, because it wasn't me. I just was, making a place for it. The magic happened because of all the people that were there. But I'm very proud of that. And also, I was recently recognized at an event. The other thing that was really major about the box is that we occurred during AIDS, and we were there, sort of the very, very beginning of the AIDS crisis. And I remember in the beginning of the box, we didn't even really know yet how you got AIDS. I don't think it was really, nailed down as to how you got it. So people were afraid to touch each other. They were afraid to kiss. They were, of course, afraid to have sex, but, way more than that. There was a whole, can I hug? Can I kiss? Can I, blah, blah, blah. And that was, that played out on the dance floor. And we kind of got to this thing where we just said that dancing is safe sex, because safe sex was the big, I don't think it's a secret that in the gay men's community is quite promiscuous and loves the physical contact. Our delicious boys. Girls somehow manage to be a little bit less so. However, so it was, I think it was pretty excruciating for the guys to not be able to touch each other, not be able to. So we came up with, dancing is safe sex, and it felt like it. I mean, you felt like you walked through, when I walked through and everybody was like drenched in sweat because it was very hot. It was very crowded and very hot. And you'd walk through I would walk through, I could say myself, walking through the crowd, and just, people's sweat, just, you'd almost like slither through. If I had to get back to the coat check to tell them something, or I had to get back to the soundboard or whatever, I had to run through the crowd, and it was like, like slithering through, and I was like, man, that was sexual.
Yeah, exactly. I touched more bodies,
a lot of skin,
exactly, in 5 minutes than I have in 5 years.
Totally. But I was the reason I brought that up is I was recently recognized at a dance that occurs. I DJ often, called Long-Term Survivors, and it's an event that's put on, and it's a dance for men who have lived this long with AIDS.
Yeah.
And that's like 30 and 40 years almost. And Hank Trout, who's an amazing writer and wonderful man in the community, wrote something really sweet about me. And one of the things that he said, which made me cry, might make me cry right now, thus the tears I spoke of earlier. But he said he said, Paige, you probably saved as many lives as any doctor in San Francisco during the AIDS crisis by giving us a place to dance. And you know, it was so vital what occurred out on that dance floor.
Yes.
Because of AIDS and the magic that happened there. And you know, you'd go to 3 and 4 memorial services for your friends, and then on Thursday nights you could go dance for 5 hours and just forget for a quick minute, you know. And so he just said, you probably saved as many lives as any doctor. And I just said, you know what, I feel like I just got my Grammy.
There you go. There you go.
That was my Grammy.
Yeah, I worked in HIV for 21 years. And I think, you know what, when you were describing it, it was a safe space, and safe spaces were important in the early days because, like you said, nobody knew. And so, and there was a lot of, you know, anti-gay rhetoric and people, you know, talking about concentration camps and all of that stuff. And so to be able to go and sort of dance it all out, was really important.
Yeah. Oh no, it was vital. You know, I think it was vital. And that was, I think, another thing that made it work was what I was told, was that so many of the gay men were dying that the people that were caring for the gay men were the gay women. And the gay women, you know, so it kind of started blending the men and women's community quite a bit in the 80s. Whereas when I came out, when in the 70s, everything was very separatist. It was girls are over here and the boys are over here, and the boys did not want the girls in the boys clubs, and the girls didn't want the boys. It was just like,
yeah.
So I was like, oh hell no, we're gonna all get together. We're all gonna be together.
I think that's when it's the most fun, when everybody's sort of committed to the music and the dance, and you know, they're not coming to the club to start trouble. They're coming to the club to sort of let go of their troubles. That's when the magic happens, because there were times that I'd be dancing at the monastery or Trocadero, and I'd swear that the building was going to lift up off its foundations because the energy was so intense.
God.
I know.
It's Raining Men.
Yes.
How about the Galleria with 4,000 gay men singing It's Raining Men? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I think I saw God in the Galleria.
I feel like I never made it to a Galleria party, I think because I was too broke back then to pay for the Galleria, but I remember it. But I saw God on the dance floor more than a few times. Just from the music. I mean, I'm sure the enhancements helped, but I've seen it sober. I've seen God sober too. So I know that there's power in the music.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
How do you keep the music and DJing fresh for yourself, especially after 40 years?
You know, it's kind of an insatiable appetite, really. You know, it's a little less for me now. I don't insatiably listen to the radio like I used to, but I always want to know what's new. And you know, it's sort of like if I were a dog, my ears perk up when I hear something that I know. I'm like, oh yeah, that is going to be, you know. And many of the years that I was a DJ, I was a Billboard reporter for Billboard magazine, and you get every record that is pressed on vinyl in the mail delivered to your house.
Oh my God,
so I had this
amazing.
Like obscene record collection. I mean, yeah, it was a extraordinary experience, but I had to have a personal assistant to open all the boxes and help me listen to them all week, because you're exposed to so much music. But it was like an avalanche of music.
Oh my God. That's
so you're always hearing the new stuff. I remember holding Thriller and Billie Jean in my hand for the first time. I remember putting the needle down on Billie Jean and going, whoa, wow, that is a powerful freaking record. And, you know, I remember Lucky Star, Madonna. I got that as a 12-inch. You know, nobody had ever heard it, ever. Now it's like,
I know, huh? It's about to be played in cities around the world on her 40th year celebration. She's going on tour. Yeah. Wow, that just must have been amazing. Like, okay, so I know that you live off the grid right now, and you build tiny houses. So what did you do with your record collection?
Well, two things. First, I had a record collection that I sold about 25 years ago.
That you were able to retire on as a result?
No, you think. I thought I was going to be able to buy a farm, and it was like, no, you actually can't pay somebody to take it away. It wasn't very much money. And a guy came all the way from England and bought it, actually.
Wow.
And he came with a container. We filled his container. It was 30,000 records.
Oh my God.
So sold that, but then I kept all the gold and kept everything. And I kept everything in storage for 25 years. And I never touched it. It was in cardboard boxes, like costing me an arm and a leg. And I literally just sold it.
Oh, yeah.
I kept enough to work.
Yeah.
The good stuff. But I sold the bulk because you don't use it anymore. It's just not how you, I mean, if I were a millionaire and I had a big house and a big loft and I had one big wall that I could put my 10,000 records on, I would have. I didn't want to sell it. But it was just like it was like, having a cinder block attached to your ankle while you walked. It was just like,
yeah.
So, I looked at my friend after I sold it, and I looked at her and went, shit, I feel like I just cut off my legs. And I looked at her, but I said, but I got wings.
There you go.
Wings.
There you go.
It was a nice transition, but it was like, oh, wow, that was big.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I actually sold my records well before I was a DJ, and now I'm buying some back. And actually,
I'm going to buy mine back.
Yeah. And actually, when I was out in California caring for my aunt who was in hospice, and her husband, who had died before her, had 569 jazz records, and I went through and pulled about 100 of those records, and then about 40 of her Elvis Presley records, and I shipped them back to myself.
Where's the other 400? I'll go get them.
I sold most of them. Yeah. And then some of them they didn't want, and we ended up, just like nobody would take them. Like we couldn't even give them away.
Yeah, it's true.
What do you think have been your biggest challenges in the business? And what do you think are the biggest challenges for women DJs in particular?
I may have to field the darts that are thrown at me, but I'm going to say there have not been a whole lot of challenges being a woman DJ. If anything, it was a positive.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of one thing that wasn't, it was harder to get, business things. I think, the fact that I got a record, that I got the radio was a coup, because, they just weren't, certain aspects of the music industry, they don't even consider women.
Right.
It's a different world now, but as a DJ, it was always positive. I think it, and even gay. I worked in all the straight clubs, and I was like always, macking on all the cute bartenders. I was just like the lesbian in the DJ booth. I had a lot of fun. I had a blast.
Title of your book, The Lesbian in the DJ Booth.
Exactly that. Lesbian in the booth. No, I had a great, I think, when I came out of the closet, I was and I don't know if it was everywhere, but it was pretty separatist back then. It was pretty, I hadn't really explored loving boys. I had boyfriends when I was a kid, but that really didn't, pan out to be what I wanted to do. But it was really fun to kind of not explore, but express, when I started the box, and I just had, all these wonderful gay men around me all the time. And I had a blast. We all had a blast with each other.
Yeah.
and got to know each other. And I felt so free being able to express, I mean, men are gorgeous, girls are gorgeous, boys are gorgeous, everybody's gorgeous. So I'm not bisexual, but I definitely, I think everybody's beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
No, I feel the same way. I was thinking the other day, there was a scene on a television show I was watching at a strip club, and a straight woman was like, "Hey, I'll go to a strip club. I'm cool." And then I thought, yeah, I've gone to strip clubs with women, and I've gone to strip clubs with men, and I'm like putting dollars in men's G-strings as much as I am in women's G-strings.
exactly.
Right.
Is it completely tacky for me to walk over and get my phone charger because my cell phone just told me that it's low battery? Is that really tacky to do in the middle of an interview?
No, we'll work with it.
Okay,
I can edit it out.
Starting now. Okay.
Okay, I took the opportunity of having a drink of water. No,
I think I might do the same.
Yeah, go get a drink of water because I can edit out these sections. There you go. Let's see, where are we at? Do you still make music? Like play the guitar, produce your own tracks?
I play the guitar just for myself. I dream about it all the time. I fantasize about it all the time of having a concert up here in the country in my barn where I'm staying. There's a big barn, and I want to do a show for the people I love, but I haven't done it yet. I'm 66, and who knows? There's still time.
Absolutely. I'm 63. I started DJing at 57.
Good for you. So the producing thing I did for a while, I went to San Francisco State, and did the music recording industry program. They did a certificate program, which I loved. I cannot speak more highly about it. It was so good. And one of the reasons I did that is I wanted to become a remixer.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought if I learn how to mix, then obviously I'll be able to remix. So that was kind of my, the trajectory. And I actually, I ended up buying a shit ton of equipment, and I bought the Pro Tools and a big Korg, workstation and all this stuff, and drum machines. And I started making music. And because I'm a DJ, I know that there are things that occur in the music industry that are kind of, especially in dance music, where, let's say, Korg comes out with a new keyboard that has this just outrageous sound, and kind of everybody scrambles to kind of clamor to that new sound.
Yeah.
And then a new sound comes out, or a new technology comes out, and this whole another thing, sort of electronic thing comes out, and everybody clamors, the producers clamor to do that, and they copy each other. And if you're still playing on equipment that's 5 years old, you can't compete, because people are now, the music sound is getting so rich and so full and so and it's all being done electronically.
Yeah.
And if your sound is yesterday and everything else is playing up here, you can't compete. And I thought, and so what ended up happening is I spent, everything was like $20,000 or something on all this stupid equipment. And then an hour and a half later, it was like, oh, well, this is a new drum machine that's out. It's got this other sound that everybody's using. And that's another $1,000. And you have to get this other and this sampler. And it was just like, I just was like, this is a rat race.
Yeah.
I don't really want to be in this rat race. That's not my love of music, is more, expressing what's in my heart with the instruments around me. And I just didn't want to play with the big boys. It's a real competitive, sound. Sound is very, and when you listen to a 1964 Beatles records, and then you put Calvin Harris on afterwards, the fidelity in the room is very different.
Yes.
And so you just can't compete. You can't mix. I'm exaggerating for the purpose of this story. But if you're playing Calvin Harris and all this thing, and then you put on the Beatles 65, it goes from being this big to being this big, and it's like you can't. It's no, forget it.
Yeah, there's no way. You can't. There's no way to bump it up either. You can't unless you actually play another track underneath it and remix it live.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Although now they have the stems feature in a lot of the softwares, so you can separate the vocals out from the instruments from the kicks in the bass. And so you can actually just on the fly create an a cappella track and put another instrumental underneath it, which is pretty cool.
It's all cool. I mean, it's fun. The whole sampling thing, I was wild about it. I thought at first I did a whole report for school about it, because it went right when I was going to school. Sampling was just coming out, and they did not know how to handle it. I mean, the legal aspect of the sampling issue was just, turn the whole music industry upside down. And it took them a while to kind of level it out and figure out how we're going to handle it and how we're going to, navigate it and how we're going to regulate it and blah, blah. And, but it was cool. It was sort of like, if you take the way that I described it, I said, if you take a Picasso, if you take, Mona Lisa, and you cut it into 4 pieces and you rearrange them, it's still going to be the Mona Lisa. You're going to steal it. But if you take and you cut it into 1,000 pieces and you make a whole new piece with it, it's not going to be recognizable anymore as Mona Lisa.
Right.
And, if you think of it as these pieces being actually instruments or paints, colors that you're making a new piece. So, there's great creativity in sampling. And everybody's like, What I thought was really funny was when all of the artists that were sampling James Brown and Rick James and everybody, and Rick James and James Brown were all pissed off, and they're like, you can't do that. And the hip hop artists were like, fuck you, we can do this. This is, anyway. And then the newer hip hop artists were getting pissed off, or they were sampling the old hip hop artists, and the hip hop artists were getting pissed off because you're sampling my sample. And I was like,
I know, huh?
Doesn't feel good, does it?
I know. And it's, for live streaming, for example, I use Mixcloud because it's the only place that won't it's the only place I'm guaranteed that I won't get taken down for copyright issues. And I always think, DJs, like you were working for Billboard, you were a DJ, you were breaking new music before anyone else heard it.
Totally.
And they can't pay for that kind of marketing.
Totally. Yeah.
And so it sort of boggles my mind when, Facebook and Instagram and all those places, take down, an hour-long mix or something. It's like, I'm actually, exposing people to music that maybe they haven't heard.
Totally true.
Yeah.
The legal aspects of the music industry are complicated.
They are very complicated. Okay, we're into the lightning round. Favorite track right now and why? Doesn't have to be a dance track. It could be any track.
I am loving still Break My Soul. Love that track. And it's old. I love the Cold Heart.
Oh, I love
Elton John.
Yes.
And Dua Lipa.
I love Dua Lipa.
I love Doja Cat.
Yes, I love Doja Cat too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of old. That's kind of older stuff. I like Lotto, Latto.
I saw Lotto in concert when I saw Lizzo.
Oh, nice. Yeah, she's great. I like her a lot. I love Lizzo, of course. Come on. Who doesn't love Lizzo?
I mean, she was amazing. It was the first time, Paige, that I'd seen an entire arena sing the lyrics to every single song right along with her. Every single song, the whole arena.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's
Yeah.
great.
One beautiful thing about DJing is that, and I think it's also a function of growing up during rock and roll and soul and all of that, is that people our age can still appreciate what's coming out now. Instead of turn that stuff down, it's like, no, I want to go out and dance to this. Like, I
don't know. A lot of people my age are all I can hear is the bass. All I hear is the bass. I'm like, yeah, that's good, actually.
Yeah. I remember when you could feel the bass, right? Because the subwoofers were so powerful that you could feel it in your chest.
I liked it when it made the hair on your arms go up when you're standing in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Dua Lipa is one of my favorites because that music, her hooks are just so tight. Like you hear a Dua Lipa song and you're singing it for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
Favorite piece of equipment and why? And maybe a favorite historical piece and a favorite new piece.
And when you say equipment, do you mean DJ gear?
Yeah, DJ gear.
Oh, I mean the 1200 turntable. I mean, somebody sent me the funniest picture that somebody had taken a 1200 and put a salad bowl where the turntable was, and they made it their sink.
Oh my God.
In the school bus or something. And I was like, yeah, that's funny. The 1200 turntable will always be, if anybody has any, I'd love to. 1200 turntables.
Good to know.
If you hear of any. What is that? That's historical, and that's still today.
Yeah, it is still today. Yeah, people go nuts over 1200s. What mixer did you use with them, or mixers over time?
I mean, it depends on where, I owned Newmark stuff. I liked Newmark, but all the clubs had the, the Bozak and the Yuri and the really, really nice knob mixers. Those were fun.
Oh yeah. I've been looking for a rotary mixer just to try it out.
It's like, I mean, it's much more organic, kind of, you ride it more. You kind of, you can, the nuance of bringing one in more at when, and it's a little bit more sexy.
Yeah. And what do you work on now?
You have to work on Serato. It's the whole electronic DJ platform that pretty much is, there's a couple of different ones, but one of the things that is so annoying and so sobering, and it has caused some serious issues for me in the early days, was if your Serato does not speak to the mixer at the club, you can't play.
Yeah.
And there's no like window of time of, come on down in the afternoon and test it out. Usually you show up and you slide in, and if it doesn't work, you look like a schmo.
Yeah.
So I've had that happen a couple of times where my stupid computer would not speak to the controller. And so what I do now is I bring my own controller everywhere I go. And I'm not even going to even have a conversation with anybody about, well, you can bring it now. I'm bringing my controller and my computer. We'll just put a towel down if we have to over your controller, and I'll put mine down because I know my two things speak to each other, and they are always perfect.
Well, you're Page Hodel. You've been doing this 40 years. You can be like, I'm bringing my own.
Well, I'm not a princess about it.
No.
But I'm fanatic about it sounding good. I want it. I remember one year, the very first time that the gay parade in San Francisco had DJs. The first year I was their DJ, and I think I was one of them, but I might have been the only one. And it was, they basically put two turntables on a banquet table in the middle of City Hall, and a sound system. And it was like, oh, great. Okay. And I brought my records. I set them up on the chair. I started playing, and my record started warping in the sun.
Oh my God.
Because there was no roof over. It was just the sun and the turntable.
Oh
and I'm
my God.
watching Kano, which is the most rare record you can buy. It's, you know, you can't buy it. It's so rare. And I'm watching my Kano start to go like this. And I was like, you know, so I was like, oh my God, we have to cover this. So, you know, and I started putting record covers like this. And the sound guy, or the, you know, the stage manager, whatever, I was like, oh my God, you guys, you've got to get something to put over this. Does anybody have an umbrella? Does anybody have a, and they were like, no. And I said, well, can you go get a refrigerator box or find a cardboard box or something? Well, I don't, you know, and I said, okay, well then guess what? You got to stand here and hold these record covers over my record so it doesn't warp. And I got kind of called out as a princess.
My word.
And I was like, oh my God, I am not a princess, but I am professional.
Yes.
And I want to be taken seriously. And I don't want to be, you know, that is not princess.
No, that's
I can show you princess. I am not one.
Saving your equipment and your goods, your products.
Yeah.
What kind of controller do you play on?
Just a Pioneer. It's an old one. I don't, you know, truthfully, I don't use a lot of bells and whistles. I really like the music itself,
Mm-hmm.
the way that the artist created it. I want to project that. That I you know, I don't do a lot of dropouts and overlaps and spinning backwards and scratching. And I love scratching, but if it's done well, but nobody does it anymore. But so I like the music to really reflect what the artist created. So as long as I can really beautifully segue between the records, I don't use all the bells and whistles on all the new things. And now that, you know, you don't even really have to match beats anymore. You know, the new mixers, you can just push this button and it matches the beats. So it's like, what is the point?
Right. Right. Yeah, I get a little gear crazy sometimes. I recently bought a Reloop Mixon 4, which is a 4-channel, and I got it like literally the guy who was selling it lived right down the street, and sold it to me for an obscenely low price because it's still selling in like Sweetwater and Guitar Center for like $900, and I got it for like a quarter of that.
Wow, great.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I've been playing on that, but I like Newmark stuff too. I had a Newmark NS6 too that I like until it kind of lost its mind, and I have to figure out why. All right.
This was a long time ago. Then I haven't used Newmark in a really long time because everything is built in now to the controller, the Pioneer controller, so you don't need a mixer anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I recently rented a studio in Ypsilanti for 4 hours. They have a DJ studio there, and they have all the Pioneer Club gear. And so I thought, I mean, I have a little DDJ 400 and it kind of matches the club gear, but not really. And so I went in there with a USB stick and I played for like 3 hours and just, you know, how does this work? How does that work? Why does the cue start things every time? I don't know how to change that. It's like every time I hit the hot cue, it started. I'm like, no.
Did they teach you? The people there were teaching you?
No, I just had 4 hours with 2 Pioneer CDJ 2000s or Nexus 2000s and what was it, a Nexus 900 mixer.
Great.
So I had the manual on an iPad in case I needed it to figure out how to do something, and I just messed around with it.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's a great idea.
What's your favorite self-care technique?
Self-care?
Mm-hmm.
I'm living it right now. I live in the country, totally off the grid. I mean, in order, you know, to survive COVID, there was no more DJing for,
Yeah.
I mean, all of the DJing came grinding to a halt. So we all had to kind of, Jesus, I've done this for 40 years. What am I going to do? But I ended up becoming a carpenter, not becoming a carpenter, but starting to charge, for doing what I love. I've been building for a long time. So, making a living up in the country and building, but really looking forward to getting back in the clubs in May, April or May.
Well, I'm going to make a point of trying to come to your, not just your clubs, but your workshops that you do for women on carpentry.
Oh yeah. The carpentry was really fun. That last summer was fabulous.
Yeah. Favorite woman DJ and why?
DJ Lady Ryan, Bay Area. Olga T, Bay Area. DJ La Coquille, Bay Area. They're all amazing. Amazing, amazing DJs. Idaj, amazing.
Okay.
Oh, wait, one more.
Yes.
DJ Rockaway, amazing.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the name of this podcast is You Gotta Be, and it's based on the Rosella song You Gotta Be Strong, You Gotta Be that song. So you gotta be what?
Free.
You gotta be free.
Free.
Excellent. That's the end of the questions. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing in the future here, in the near future? How can people find out about the activities that you're doing and all of that stuff?
Yeah, so I am going to be doing a Saturday night party in Oakland/Berkeley at the White Horse. The name of the party is going to be Joyride. And it's going to be, kind of a continuation of the vibe of the box, but with new future and very soulful music of all kinds. I want to play old school. I want to play house music. I want to play hip hop. I want to play a little bit of everything. I want to play some old funk. I'd really love to, and I think you can get away with it more now. People are a little bit more open to old funk. And I'm going to be doing that Saturday nights. And, I still do carpentry during the day. If anybody wants me to build them a tiny house, give me a call. And I have a Facebook page and I have a Instagram. So you can reach me through either of those.
Okay, great.
I'm not going anywhere.
I'll track down all your socials and put them on the YouTube when I upload this.
Sounds great.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to have this amazing conversation. I mean, I am sure that many DJs, especially women DJs, are going to watch this because, you've been doing this for a long time and you just are like a font of information about how to not sort of the technical aspects of DJing, but the emotional aspects of DJing, which I think are important. And sometimes nowadays, I think people forget that because, DJs are kind of like the performer. And so everybody's sort of staring at them. And I'm always like, go dance, like go interact with each other. I'm just fiddling knobs up here. Go interact with each other.
It's interesting. Like whenever young DJs or young promoters would come to me and say, what should I do? Or what's the secret or whatever. And I always said the same thing. And I will say the same thing now. If there's a parting word, I would absolutely say, follow your dreams. Just stay focused on your dream.
Yes.
And do it. It's not going to mean that it's going to work and it's going to happen, but what else is there to do?
Yeah. No, I 100% believe in that. Yes, I really appreciated this. I learned a lot. I know my audience is going to learn a lot. I will text you when this is up and running. I'll probably get it up on Sunday.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.